Okay, so we're recording and we're starting the meeting now. So welcome to our 13th session of the Warwick Zoom Garden Plot. Today's September 14th, and tonight's agenda. We start with our usual Q&A, the weekly update. Actually, a couple of people who I thought might be here to do that aren't here. Well, just ask everyone to tell us what they're doing. And then we have a small discussion about favorite garden tools. Okay, so let's go back to that discussion. What did you decide on the compost?
Oh, Shannon. No, what did Shannon decide? I don't know. Well, let's not put her on the spot.
Are you asking me a question? I don't understand the question.
So at all events, there is that compost that's available in Memorial Park in Warwick, and it's a great resource. I recently went to get some and realized that the compost that I've been making isn't as rich as that compost. That I do a thing, and I mentioned this on the garden Zoom plot early on, and so I just gonna want to go back to it. What I do is I get a bunch of garden waste. It's not really garden waste, is it? Garden scraps? What do we call that? Anyway,
garden waste is good.
Okay, garden waste. And I'll also get leaves that I get from, people in the village put their leaves in bags. So I bring the bags home and I put them all in a big ring. It's, I got this idea from the Organic Gardening Encyclopedia, the Encyclopedia of Organic Gardening, that's Rodale's. And they say take a piece of 10-foot fence and make a cylinder and fill it with all of these things. And if you just let them sit for long enough, they will all compost down and make, pretty good soil. My variation on it was I would plant potatoes in it. That would get in early spring, and I would put potatoes in there and try to cover them up and keep them watered and stuff. But what I've noticed is a couple things. First of all, this year I didn't water it once, and the young neighbor who's like 4 or 5 years old planted all the potatoes. She didn't plant them very deep, and also we didn't use real seed potatoes from the store, from like a gardening center. We just used potatoes that had gone to their eyes were growing. The potatoes this year, they came out really dinky. They were all really, really small potatoes. It wasn't like a big, beautiful potatoes coming out. That was one thing. The other thing I'm noticing, and I compare it to past years, because just this last week, I went to get some compost from the Warwick Village supply. And I sifted it out, and it's nice black stuff. And I'm noticing that my compost that comes out of it, it's grayer. I'm going to say it's gray. And I think that's because one of the things I end up doing is like putting in dirt to plant the potatoes. So I think it's really a high proportion of dirt in my compost at the end. So now that I think about it, I'm not making the high quality compost that I want to try to make. I'll probably keep doing my potato thing like that with some variation. It's worked really well in the past.
And your compost has more nitrogen in it as well, right? You're giving it kitchen scraps too, or no?
Yes, it has that. Once I put it in for the potatoes to grow in, what I call a potato ring, I don't add anything at that point. It's like finishing compost, and the potatoes are growing, and I'm putting my compost somewhere else. But the kitchen scraps are like the minor part of compost.
I think
the major part is the bags and bags and bags of leaves from the village.
Okay. What did you say, Nicole?
I mean, it was to my knowledge that like the real trick to compost is proportion, right? And you have to have the proper amount of greens that you do to browns. Now, from what I was talking to with one of the guys from DPW, whose family is in farming and grew up on a farm, he was telling me that the compost that you're getting from DPW, the stuff from last year is somewhat good to plant in now, but it's better if you can leave it and just kind of keep turning it and letting it break down, right? But for the majority, all that stuff is coming from the brush pile. And I think that there's enough sap and things to make it like nitrogen rich, right? And not so carbon rich. But that's why I was asking you, like when I do mine, like I bring my like kitchen compost bucket out, right? And every time I bring my kitchen compost bucket out, I leave the lid off in the kitchen, and I make sure that I fill it up with browns like 2/3 of the way, to try to keep it really nicely balanced. Like I put it in a barrel, that I just kind of spin. So that was my question to you. Like, are you giving it enough of these nitrogen-based materials to really turn it from that gray to that rich brown, beautiful, deep soil?
Hired, you want to take a sit? Take a sit.
So maybe you could maybe mute everyone, Michael.
Am I totally off on that? Does anybody?
No. I think no. I think well, there are two different types of that's very good to have in compost. But there are some stuff where you can just put a giant leaf pile that preferably chopped and kind of leave it, and it will break down over time and become beautiful soil. But what you're doing, you definitely need the mixture. The small. You definitely want nitrogen and carbon mixture. But right, definitely much more browns.
It sounds like what you guys are doing is just different levels of composting, because it seems like the leaf litter compost and the organic, just bulk organic materials, you can compost bulk organic materials using that technique. And then the standard compost that I think her name was Nicole, I'm so sorry if it's not, is the more standard, like what I do and what people that are conscious about not wanting to send their scraps to landfill tend to do.
Actually, I've got a question about about the future of our Zoom garden plot. Now, when it gets to be December and nobody has a garden going, except for Bill Makovsky, who of course has a greenhouse, and he will still be harvesting his carrots that he's planting right now.
Yeah, Bill. I love Bill.
I'm actually trying to do some experiments this year where I'm going to attempt to grow throughout the winter. Oh, am I on mute? Okay, good.
No, no.
All right, sorry. So, but I don't have a greenhouse. I don't have any cloches. I don't have any window boxes or anything like that. I'm going to be doing row cover, and I could do plastic, but I'm hesitant to do plastic because you need to be able to get to it to open it up. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. So it's all very initial testing, and it's all very small scale. It's all in, it's all small scale. But I am planning on doing stuff. It's tend to be just greens, though, because that's all that will grow over winter. So it's a lot of greens and, stuff like that.
I was just visiting Bill this last week, and his basic plan is, he has an official greenhouse, but what he says is stuff doesn't grow in those months. Basically, it grows now. It just stays well in the ground in the greenhouse, so they keep harvesting it through November and December.
Right.
But he doesn't plan on any growth during those months.
Right.
He also uses row cover, but he gives that up once it really gets winter. But I want to get back to the question.
Shannon, that would be tricky. I don't know. It might work, but I doubt it. That's in the middle of the winter. I don't know if anything's going to grow.
I think, I agree with what Michael just said. You're looking more for sustainability and getting a jump on spring. So I agree with that. But with some of the techniques I'm using involving plastic, you are supposed to be able to get a microgreen garden to grow. It's not extensive, it's microgreens. And the deal is more carrying it through and prepping, getting your stuff ready so that when spring comes, you can really take a jump on spring.
So, but at all events, the question I wanted to get to was the Cornell Cooperative Extension. They have Master Gardener program. Apparently, someone from the Cornell Cooperative Extension has a program on composting that they can deliver via Zoom. So I'm wondering if for the Zoom garden plot, once we get to November and everybody's garden is pretty much done for the year, if maybe we want to do a monthly meeting with something like home composting by presentation by the Cornell Cooperative Extension. How much interest is there in that? That's what I'm taking a poll here.
I'm interested.
Me too.
Okay.
Yeah, we need something to hold us over for the winter months.
I mean, there are months where I'm looking through seed catalogs, planning and moving forward and trying to plot.
So in November we could do something on composting, and I don't know about December, but isn't January the ideal month to have a seed picking discussion? Would
Right.
that be?
I agree with that.
The other thing there is there's winter sowing. Have you ever seen the winter sowing in the milk jugs? I've done that for things that are difficult to germinate that need to be cold stratified, and it's pretty interesting. So I mean,
It works well with carrots. It works really well with carrots.
yeah, I've done butterfly, like butterfly weed, more perennial flowers and stuff, but it's good, and it's a way to start seeds in the middle of winter with almost no work.
I like that no work thing.
No, that fits in my schedule.
I like the no work thing.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. One meeting a month in the winter is perfect.
Oh, and sorry, let me also add, we had a really good workshop this weekend by Orange Environment. Put it on. Shannon was there, and Sean. They did morning was natural building with Jamie Manza, and then later on they did rainwater catchment, where they gave us rainwater buckets to fill up, to create and bring home. And they mentioned in October they are planning, Ermin, who I guess runs the compost program.
Ermin is the county recycling coordinator.
Okay, he's the county. He's planning on doing a compost, and on October they're gonna do a compost and mushroom workshop. So that'd be something to look forward to.
Yeah,
October.
we're working on dates for that and finalizing what all is going to be happening that day.
Yeah, but it was very nice. It was very well attended and very safe, physical distancing, and it was very good.
Super cool. I just want to throw in, I know somebody that's been giving like seminars and doing things online, local, Amy Lewis Sweetman, who does foraging and all sorts of stuff to teach us about our environment and what around us is edible and just lots of things that are around. So if you want me to put you in contact with her, I absolutely can do that.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we have our foraging lady, Alexander, but she was not feeling well tonight.
I'm very interested in any information that I can attain or any informative anything I would love to get in on. I have a general question because I'm showing up late to this party. Are we breaking ground? Because we should be able to break ground this year. Are we not doing that?
Oh, well, no, this is a separate thing than the grow. We'll talk separately about our community garden. This is just overall gardening and questions and stuff like that.
Yeah, I just want to know exactly what the line is. So this meeting that I'm attending right now isn't for the Greenwood Lake Community Garden?
No.
No.
This is like a gardening question and answer, just discussing stuff.
Oh, it's just a garden club.
Yeah, it's the garden
Oh,
club.
that's exciting. All right, cool. Sorry, guys.
No, it's okay. I should have been more clear, but we'll talk about that tomorrow.
So Grow Local Greenwood Lake has a meeting tomorrow night. Is that it?
No. Just me and Shannon are going to talk tomorrow. I'm planning on a weekend. I'm planning on a meeting this weekend, but I'll post that tomorrow. But yeah, this is separate, but all people are welcome.
Okay, very good. And Kate Schmidt is joining us. She's from Orange County Office of Planning. Welcome, Kate. So let's see, we're still in the question phase of the garden plot. Does anybody have any other gardening questions that they want to throw out at this point? Go ahead, Gail.
As we probably should make notes of what we really liked in our gardens, the varieties and the seed companies that we used, because I would love to, at one of the meetings, for everybody to share what they absolutely always want in their garden because it does so well before we forget.
I love that, Gail. I'll just say in my garden journal, I've been writing notes to future Nicole. So like the Nicole of 2020 or 2021 preparing for the next garden. I'm like, we want to grow this again every year forever, period. We do not want to grow this again. No more, big X. So I'm totally with you in writing future notes.
That's what I need.
Well, one of the things that I've done is a couple times in the summer, and I should do it again soon, I go to the same position of each garden bed and take a picture. And the first time I did it, I put it in sequence in a PowerPoint. thing. The second time I haven't dropped the pictures in, but that's the plan. I'll get to the middle of the winter, I'll put everything in order, and I'll stop and think, oh, this bed did this good and that didn't, and where do I rotate next year's beds to? And hopefully I'll do that before the seed ordering season arrives.
Michael, I have 2 questions.
Hey, Sean.
How's it going?
Good.
Does anyone do cover cropping? And if so, what type of cover crop do they use?
I love that you asked this question because this is in the vein that I was going to ask about. So I love, great question. Amazing.
And then, Michael, do you know, or does anyone know anyone that focuses a lot on perennial plants?
Vegetables or flowers?
Vegetables. And
there aren't a lot of perennial vegetables around here. I mean, herbs. You've got asparagus, rhubarb,
Good King Henry.
berries.
Good King Henry. It's a pot herb.
But I mean, there's a lot of herbs.
There are some things that self-seed. Did you count that? Things like dill will self-seed.
Oh yeah, I have a dill for the lifetime, but that's an herb.
Oh, okay. What about we have? Gosh, I wish I had a picture of this to share. Purple amaranth, and it grows like a weed,
Right.
and it self-seeds. They're like 6 feet tall, and you can eat all the leaves off them. It's like, whoa. And even now the seeds aren't fully ripe, and we'll cut even off the immature seeds and throw the whole thing in the frying pan.
Right. Well, I mean, from that point of view, that's not technically a perennial if you want to get real detailed about it. I mean, I will let arugula grow. This year there was a big arugula that had grown into a little bush. So I saved it from the chopping block and made everyone leave it, and because it flowers and seeds. And I let it go completely to seed, and I harvested all the seeds. And those arugula seeds grow really nicely. But that's a perennial technically is a plant that, stays alive all the time. These are plants that die off when we're talking about die off in the frost. Herbs are perennial.
Yeah, well, Sean, there are many perennial vegetables. There's many books on it. I'm thinking of I read a great book called Two Plant Geeks and a Lot, or something like Eric Tollmeister and the guys who wrote the very seminal book on food forests, and they literally built. I'll send you the name. I'll send you the email when I remember the name of it. It's all, and they plant their whole backyard of all these perennials. I heard of almost none of them. They're all these like nuts and berries and fruits that, vegetables that tasted a little bit like ours, but, a little bit unusual. Like,
Right.
sunchokes are perennials, but
Are nut trees considered perennials?
They're trees.
Yeah, trees, right? Or bushes. I mean, you can keep it to a smaller level.
Right.
But they could be some of them are giant trees, but you could, obviously berries are obvious, and
Berries.
trees and fruits, but there are a lot of vegetables. There are many books just of perennial vegetables, but they are a little bit more of an acquired taste. And, you're not going to see them on ShopRite shelves anytime soon, but maybe eventually we will, but not as of yet. And Sarah, do you guys use cover crop on your in your community gardens?
Sometimes we use cover crop. What I do is, I buy a mix. If you go to the larger seed suppliers, they'll have a spring mix or they have a fall mix. And like clover takes over too much. I prefer ones that has a lot of legumes in it, that type of thing, because I don't want something that is going to keep coming back and coming back. But no, a cover crop's a good thing to put on.
And Sean, you're just starting your garden, right?
Yeah.
I mean, did you have a plan? I would really build up the soil a little bit more. Maybe before I hit went right to the cover crops. Like this year, I would again try to get a lot of compost and manure and, really leaves, really layer it up at the end of this fall. That's
Right.
that's what I would personally do. But
Right.
I
Going
would
off
move into
of
cover crops a few years from now when it's more established.
going
Yeah,
off. Oh, go
I
ahead.
was talking to the guy at Pioneer Farm. He has like the wedding
Yeah.
Yeah.
farm, and he has a little farm stand out front. And I was talking to him, and he recommended winter rye. And then if your soil's really compacted, there's a couple different types of radishes to loosen up
Right.
the
Daikon.
Yep. There's radishes you can use.
So
How large is his garden?
My garden or
The
Pioneer?
Pioneer Farm.
I'm not really sure. I think it's tucked back behind his house. I couldn't see it, but he just has a little farm stand. It's got to be decent size. He's had a good supply of vegetables all year round.
The reason I mention is some of those cover crops are more suitable to actually farms with farm equipment. And some of these mixtures, I think, are more appropriate for small home gardens as far as mixing them in and getting a blend.
I think that the blend that you use depends on what you're trying to do. Are you trying to put a lot of nitrogen in the soil? Add a lot of cowpeas, add a lot of snow peas, add a lot of peas and legumes. Are you trying to just prevent light from getting through? You're trying to break up the soil? Then you want radishes and stuff that has deep trap roots. So it really depends on what you're trying to do. Also, how easy do you want to mow it over? Because like some of it you can roll right over and then the plant, is done and you can plant right into that. And other ones will bounce back up and be a little bit more hardy. So it really depends on what it is you want to do. And then from that, like, for example, I've been getting into cover crops heavy the last couple of weeks. So I basically just have a list of, it's like, okay, this does this, this does this, this does this. But it really is just a matter of what you're ultimately trying to do with the soil and going from there. I'm sorry.
So does that help you, Sean?
Yes, thank you.
What are you trying to do with your soil, Sean?
I don't know. I just heard Zach Bush talk about cover crops and how it adds a lot of different bacteria to your
Yeah, he's amazing,
soil.
isn't he?
And then he uses like a roller crimper, and he's empowering all the farmers to switch from GMOs and stop using Roundup and go beyond organic. And so I just wanted to see what everyone's opinion was. And
I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan, but I haven't figured out how to incorporate that on my very, 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 very small scale. I have 2 beds. I have 2 beds in containers. So it's like, and frankly, I grow a ton of radishes. I grow 7 varieties of radish, but I grow them to eat. I don't grow them to break up ground. I grow them because I like radish greens, so.
But again, if you have a small space, sometimes cover crop doesn't even make sense. You don't need to put veg down for 2 by 2 foot square.
Yeah, but I love the concept. The concept itself and the fact that big scale farming is moving towards that is awesome, is amazing.
Right. Basically, you don't want bare soil. That's the bottom line. You don't want, so you could have mulch or living, there's mulch that you can put down as leaves or living mulch. So, it's different. So I actually have a question if I forget. Does anyone know what this pepper is? Could you see?
Yeah.
I started it from seed and I can't remember.
Is it spicy?
Oh, come on.
It looks like a cubanella or a banana pepper.
I would have gone with banana pepper. Is it spicy?
I haven't eaten it yet, but.
It looks like a banana pepper, and assuming it is a banana pepper, I would let it turn yellow. But
I guess I should have waited. Sorry.
But the best thing you can do, I always lose the labels, and I have a pretty good idea of what I put in. That looks too big for a hot pepper. But when people in the garden ask, I go, well, bite into it and you'll know if it's hot or sweet.
Yeah, you find out the hard way.
Peppers are tricky because all pepper babies look exactly the same. Peppers are super easy to mix up. Every year I buy a pepper plant that's labeled as something, and it isn't that thing. Every year.
Last year we grew these small peppers, and somebody gave us the plant or whatever, and a person who's maybe much older, I gave him one, and he sort of ran it by his lips like this. He says, "Oh yeah, that's hot." And a young guy who's in his low 20s just popped one in his mouth. He was like, oh my gosh.
So,
One of those pepper experiences.
well, thank you. So,
That's a with age comes wisdom. That's not.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
can call the newbie from the old timer.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, there's always a famous story when my wife's from Costa Rica, so I went to eat over there, and I'm eating, and I'm trying to be a good big guest, and they had these peppers on there. They were like Scotch bonnet. Oh my God. They still make fun of me today because I was just like, you know, my eyes turned red. I started choking. I was quite generous with the amount. So they still bring that one up on me. So I found out the hard way.
I've recently learned about peppers. Like my pepper plants this year are the gift that keeps on giving. The more I harvest, the more I'm getting, and they have been so prolific. I didn't know that pepperoncinis will go red. I mean, it makes perfect sense in my head that a green pepper will turn red if you let it ripen. But I've never seen a red pepperoncini in my entire life. I mean, just not what you see. But yeah, sometimes even the labels that you buy the peppers, and it's like one of them I have, it's an ahi pineapple, it's called. And it's like a wonderful snacking pepper. And you go to bite this thing and like your head falls off. I'm going to snack on this? You know, it doesn't make any sense.
Nicole, one of my biggest battles in the community garden is getting people to let the peppers ripen. It's an age-on battle. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick it, and I say, if you really need a green pepper, fine, but let it ripen.
From what I understand, they'll ripen off the vine, though, right? Like if something happens and you knock a pepper off, or if you pick one too soon, like his pepper, theoretically, if he leaves it alone, it'll ripen, right?
It will, but the sugars can't concentrate on the vine.
It's
Like it's good vine ripening.
You're right.
Night and day. It's two different things.
All right, I couldn't wait. All right, so I couldn't wait. Next time, I'll wait for the next one. I get so excited, I just had to pick it.
Folks, we're about that time. We're sort of toward the end of the questioning thing, but if anybody else has a question they want to get onto the record today, let's go ahead. Anyone, any other questions for the part of the?
I'm a seed hoarder. Is anybody else a seed hoarder?
Me.
Oh, I hoard them.
Yes, you guys would get along very well.
Oh, everything I eat that has seeds, it's like, how can I save this seed? I have pickled pepper seed or pickled cactus seeds, prickly pear. There we go. Super excited.
So before I forget, I want to mention, I shared this with Nicole on Facebook. There is a young lady who seems to have started a seed library at the Albert Wisner Library, which is pretty. I don't know if you guys know about it. I've seen this. I don't know how you get access to it, but I'm trying to talk to her about doing that in the Greenwood Lake Library, or I guess everyone could try to do that in their own individual libraries. But
that would be a really great project to get Girl Scouts involved in, or grade school would be great to like recommend that as a project for local schools to be like get their little kids involved in making a seed garden at the local library.
I have some beyond questions with that stuff. So in like a winter month, if we don't really know what's happening for coming for the future and planning, like I know kind of about heirlooms and F1 hybrids, but I also know that there's certain things with cross-pollination and how close you are to things. I'd love to learn more about that because I do love to seed save, but I also plant so many varieties within a half acre together that I know that there's cross. So if there's
definitely.
information, I would love to take a class like that.
Definitely. I definitely had cross between my delicatas and my pumpkins this year, and they turned out amazing.
Did you save the seeds from them? That's the question.
I save every seed ever.
I'm cutting open my Moon and Stars melon right now.
oh, look at that, beautiful.
So I'm so excited. And I've been, it's just processing here day and night. Like that's all we're doing as the season approaches.
That's
fun.
great.
It's crazy.
So any other questions, or move on to garden updates or whatever or announcements or shimmy?
Right. I think, we're at the point where we're supposed to do the shimmy in place. So we're going to take a break for 1 minute. We're not going to turn the cameras off. It's really not good on the human body to sit for too long. Sitting a whole hour is not a good thing. So we're all going to stand up shimmy in place for a minute. You can go off camera if you prefer. And then we'll all come back. Just a minute or two.
Oops. Come on, Maxie.
Does anybody else use the shimmy to make another cocktail? Anybody else? No? Just me? Okay.
I use the shimmy to get crumb cake. Is that allowed?
I like crumb cake in cocktails. I agree.
I'm new, so I didn't know if that was allowed, but that's what I used it for.
Sure.
I love the idea. This is Kate from Orange County Planning. I love the idea of the seed library and Girl Scouts, but I think I would need a lot more help, guidance, and hand-holding. Our Girl Scout troop, my daughter's Girl Scout troop, I am not the leader, and the leader has been very quiet since pre-COVID. I think in the past, all these similar environmental suggestions never pan out. So I don't think it would pan out again, but I'd be willing to go higher and offer it to our Goshen Council, except I don't really feel comfortable in what I'm talking about. Is there anyone there that would like to have an off conversation with me one day and I could see if we could start it in Goshen?
I wish I knew more about it. I'm gonna look. What I'll do is I'll ask the West Milford Library anything that they can get, but I don't know enough either.
Did you say West Milford or Middletown before? I heard Middletown. It's West Milford?
West Milford.
Oh, that's a big difference. Okay.
Chad, who's
Right.
Yeah, sorry, not too
I'm
close.
down. I'll help out with that. I mean, I only know things about certain seeds. I think part of the problem in implementing that into some sort of curriculum that would be successful and helpful for the Girl Scouts is that window has kind of passed, and it would have to happen very quickly. Otherwise, it can't be a practical application for them. So, I mean, as something to put on the radar for future and great ideas, because it was something I would have loved to learn as a child. But, you know, count me in. I'll help.
So when you say the window has passed, it can't be as simple as even collecting commercial food seeds?
So the issue with that is depending, like a lot of the varieties that I would believe that most of us were going to grow are heirlooms, right? So when you come into commercial seeds, you start dealing with like the F1 hybrid and then beyond that, where if you are to collect a commercial seed and try to store that, they're genetically modified to not be able to produce in nature on their own. So it's not going to be a very successful, I would think, adventure moving forward for the Girl Scouts, because the germination rate is going to be really low for something like that, as opposed to an heirloom variety that we know is going to go future and forward. And that's why I was kind of saying before about sharing and saving before cross-pollination happens. There's so much curriculum that can happen within there, but we're a little past the window. I don't know if anybody agrees with me, but I think we're like a couple of weeks, you know, it would have to be implemented now, right?
Right. No, I agree. I mean, I use commercial hybrid seeds. I mean, I'm really growing to produce a crop. It's a, you know, I call it a hobby garden, but I'm growing to get a certain amount of crop out of it. And we do grow some heirlooms, but that's not my primary focus. And like I said, the seeds I reuse, or I love self-seeding. If something's self-seeded, we have tons of flowers over there, and they've all self-seeded. Like the river complains that there's too many flowers every year. Now they complain there's too many sunflowers.
Where's
Then
that go?
every year, I magically make it so they don't all disappear. But you know, the master gardeners have programs on all these topics, and What about the Hudson Valley Seed Savers Library?
I didn't know they exist, but I'll definitely use them as a resource moving forward. Because I like, there's a company that's local, that's the Hudson Valley Seed Co. that I think that their seeds are exceptional. I've done really well with them for 2 years. So their library, yeah, let's do that.
So I would talk to them, you know. The other problem with right now is, of course, the libraries are barely open. I mean, as far as starting a program in a library. You had to have an appointment to go to Warwick up until the 15th.
Yeah, no, I think she's begun it already, but I'll speak to her, you know, get more details from the girl who's putting it together with the
No, I think it's something to plan for next year.
Yeah, definitely. And well, it's all moving forward. We're going to move, you know, continue to move forward with any projects, hopefully that. But let's make sure we get to the tools, Michael.
Can I ask, so are you suggesting when you prompted that the Girl Scouts should do this, so it's a winter project to plan and educate them to how to do this in the summer? It can almost be some of their gold, platinum, silver, whatever they call it, projects that during the summer. But literally, if you dumb it down, what are they doing? And again, I don't want to take up your time now. Who could I talk to either on the call or outside the call to see if this really is something that would be good for them to do? Can I share my info with Michael? And if anyone wants to contact me later with how they think this would be helpful to have a bunch of girls do this.
Or maybe the Hudson Valley Seed Savers or the Cornell Cooperative Extension, we should find somebody there who's really.
Right. Those are the two places I would go to.
Okay, thank you.
So yes, Kate, I believe that they are the professionals that would be able to give you the most extensive, updated, in-depth information that you need for what would be entailed and what exactly you're looking for. In my mind, it's beneficial because it teaches kids to consider the future and growing things and being involved, obviously, in the environment. But in my mind, it was something as simple as like, okay, we're going to just start a seed library so that these seeds are around for food that can be grown later. And that was just the extent of it. And I was just spitballing how that's something that I think the Girl Scouts should and would like to be involved in, just because it seems to represent Girl Scout ethics and ideals to me. But it was just spitballing.
Yeah, that's definitely overreaching. That's my personal experience. They don't have those same goals as you saying that. They're not that interested. But, you know, it could just be the current leadership. It's just been disappointing experience. But let me be positive. Please continue on to the next topic.
I just want to say one other thing about seeds. And my first time I started to try gardening, we had some compost, you know, just from saving old food and stuff. And I laid it down like where we were living up in Harris. There was this old swing set, and I had an 8x4 sheet of lattice, and I sort of tied it up there. And I thought, I'm going to plant some beans here, and they're going to grow up the lattice, and it's going to be great. You know, all the compost in there. So the beans got started, was fine, and then half of the slugs in Sullivan County showed up to eat my beans. Completely wiped them out. So in the meantime, I planted some other things back. This old swing set was sort of away from everything. So in the meantime, I planted some other things, and I was tending those. Everything was turning yellow. Finally, a few weeks later, I showed up back by where my original thing was, and some squash seeds from the compost had taken over. They were growing up this thing. These really great squash came out of it. It was really awesome. But then I saved those squash seeds, and those came out Franken squash. So this is my little warning story about just taking any seed and investing. You know, you have a finite amount of garden space, especially Shannon there in West Milford.
Right.
You know, so you don't want to just sort of randomly throw seeds in the soil, especially, you know, more finite space you have. So you want to make sure you've got a good heirloom seed of some sort. And if anybody wants some of my Jacob's cattle seed to grow the great Jacob's cattle bean, I'm happy to share those. Those are heirloom, and they've been doing just great.
Are they a cold or are they an early spring or a late spring bean?
You let them. They're a dry bean. You don't
Oh,
use
good.
a fresh bean. You let them. You grow bushes and you let them go dry.
I'm interested. How do I contact you about your seeds? Let me know.
Okay. Chad will get us in contact.
We should actually talk about tools. It's the
Let's
third,
do that. Let's do that.
the third
I'm
time
gonna
we've been
share my
trying.
screen. We only got a few pictures here. They're actually mostly from Sarah.
Right. So the anyone who wants to mention, if Michael's going to show, but anyone has a favorite tool or anything they want to mention, share with a favorite garden tool.
Scissors.
Sarah, you said the pocket pruners, but not a certain kind. What was that comment about?
The pocket pruners, I have these I bought from Lee Valley Tool at a garden show, and I don't know the name of them. What I said was that I don't buy the Fiskars, the really good ones, because I lose my hand tools, and the good ones are $50. So I buy a medium priced pruner.
I like your philosophy.
And these little pocket pruners to me are the best thing you can own. They're about 5 inches long. As you can see, they hook close. And the thing is, you can actually put them in your pocket. And that way, as I'm going around, I can just snip, 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 and they go back in my pocket. And I don't leave them on the ground or hanging from a bush, etc., etc., etc. The next thing I recommend are Atlas gloves. I always wear gloves when I'm gardening, and I see people who come over and bought the glove from the dollar store. You need a good glove. These gloves, they fit you nice and snug. They have a rubber on the bottom. They're breathable, they're flexible, so you get a good feel, and they, it will resist water on the bottom. So I highly recommend Atlas gloves. I think I had a couple other things on my list of.
Does anybody have any other kind of glove that they really prefer?
I'm bad in that I really don't like using gloves. I feel like I'm not as delicate or as precise, clumsy almost if I'm wearing gloves. And I understand that the gloves serve a purpose, and there are definitely plants I would not work with without the gloves. But even with all the squash and pumpkins I was growing, and they're prickly, it was just kind of like I'd rather get pricked than lose the feel. And I'm probably doing that all wrong, but that's just my tendency.
No, some people don't like gloves. I wear gloves. The only time I don't wear gloves is when I'm seeding and working with small seedlings. It's just a thing about having the dirt on my hands. Some people like it. I'm like, not so much.
Fair enough, yes.
I go back and forth between those standpoints. So cucumbers and things, cucumbers are always trying to kill me. I feel like I have to like wipe off their prickles from the bottom and like work my way gently before I even like think of looking at it crooked and pulling it off the vine. Warren and Stacy at the Greenwood Lake Garden and Market Center sell a pair of bamboo gloves that are my absolute favorite. They fit so nice. They feel so good on my hands. But I do go back and forth between being like, screw the gloves. I just use my hands, and then putting gloves on for things that are dangerous. And ironically enough, in these terrible times of 2020, the snippers that I like best, I have 2 different pairs of them. They're a little bit smaller than the ones that you have up, Sarah, and they're called Corona. And they're red-handled, but they're fantastic.
Okay, before we pass the gloves by, I do want to mention, I've heard it highly recommended the gardeners all have their tetanus shots, because you never know when there's going to be some piece of metal or something in the soil, and it's better to have the tetanus shot ahead of time if you're into shots.
Agreed.
All right, now this dangerous looking thing here on the left, I discovered this about 3 years ago because I have bamboo and it gets out of control. That, I call it the Terminator. It's the best thing I ever bought. They come in, I have the small size, you can buy one slightly larger. It doesn't weigh a lot. I'm a little older and I'm short, so I don't like huge tools. But this thing, you can go down in tight in the places that are compacted soil, compacted with roots, and it cuts right through there. Wonderful item, wonderful item.
Can
How
I
long is
ask you for what type of bamboo is this? Is it the Japanese invasive bamboo, or is it just,
Oh no, it's invasive.
and
Very
this
invasive.
works?
Well, I mean, you still have to put some back into it, but you can get down in there. Anything else is almost impossible. I had a spot where I took a fairly large tree out that was some kind of a junk tree, I think a maple tree, and I had it stump ground, but there were aerial roots running all over the backyard. And I worked on these for like a year, but you have to understand, me working on something for a year is like an hour at a time. And finally, and when I bought this thing, I couldn't believe it because I could actually get into the small roots, hack part way through them, and then take a reciprocating saw, and I got them out. But it's a really cool tool.
How long is
So
that
then
in
how
actual
much,
size?
how much, go ahead.
Is that 4 feet long or 5 feet long? How long is that in actual size?
It's about 4 feet, and then there's you can get a larger one.
And how much and where do you get it?
I bought mine on Amazon because I know everyone hates Amazon, but I hate to go to stores. And I see now that they are carrying them, because I was looking online for a picture, and I see now they have them at Lowe's and some other stores.
Do they? So it is called the Root Slayer. That is the actual name, just not your fondness?
The Root Slayer is the name. I originally ran across it when I was reading articles on, containing your bamboo.
Okay.
And it was about $30, $35. So, I mean, it's not wildly expensive.
Right, but you need a lot if we were to do, again, a Girl Scout project of trying to remove it. So that's a great thing to know. Thank you so much.
All right. And this tool,
I'm so sorry. I just wanted to say your Root Slayer. I actually have a smaller version of your Root Slayer that's a handheld version of the Root Slayer. And if that big thing works half as well as my handheld one, that is amazing just to have.
oh yeah, it's a life changer when you're a gardener and you're out there sweating over those beds that are compacted and you can't get the roots out. So yes, maybe I'll start an infomercial.
Yeah, I'm telling you, good endorsement.
And this other little hand tool here, I forget, I think I bought it at either Lee Valley or Gardener Supply. And it's a trowel, but I like it for planting because you can see it also has a narrow, I don't know what you call the trowel part. It's narrow and it's also serrated. So when you're like digging bulbs, for example, you need to go down 6 inches. It's a nice hand tool to add to your collection.
Yes, perfect. That's actually what I have without the curved handle. The blade is amazing. It cuts straight through stuff. It has a measuring thing right on it. I use that thing all the time. I love it.
It's good for weeding because it gets right down in there where you need to be. So there's my, and the Big Grip. The Big Grip is another nice tool. It's sort of a combination dull knife and digging device. And it's another thing, you can go straight down. It slices and dices.
Now you mentioned dough knife. Do you also use this for making bread?
No, I haven't, but that's a nice idea.
Let's see. I want to ask a tool question. My dad sometimes talks about his grandfather. So this is great grandpa Ryan, who had a farm out in central Ohio. And great grandpa's method was to store tools where he last used them.
Yeah.
So he'll think, oh, where did I'm going to stop sharing this. Where is my fencing tool or whatever? Oh, I know where I used it. And you go off there. So I just recently discovered a pair of loppers that I'd left where I last used them. And they were like a little bit rusty. And I'm thinking, is there some like end of season wash up or oiling up, or end of season tool spa treatments that I should be aware of for my tools that sometimes don't get handled the best ways?
I also tend to leave things where they were. I'm out there working and absent-minded and come in to get a glass of water and my mind goes somewhere else. And that has happened to me. There's tools I always make sure I keep track of, but there's always the time they get left out and it rains. First of all, vinegar. If you have a tool that gets really rusty, you soak it in vinegar. I've had things that get really wet, and you soak them in vinegar, and that loosens up all the rust. And then, oil them, and unfortunately, it's not operating now, but you go to the repair cafe, and they sharpen them all up for you.
Actually, I think one of our participants, Steve,
Yeah,
works at the repair cafe, and
He
among
does.
other things, he sharpens too stuff, doesn't he?
you're right. He sharpens stuff.
He maybe could do a demo for us, or we could maybe work out a deal with him. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, I would very much like to know where I could take certain tools to be sharpened, because I like to hand mow, so I have like a scythe, and I would love to know where to take that to get that sharpened.
I will say,
Werner's sharpened my machete as well as all my knives, so they might do it.
Who did it?
Werner's in Florida.
I took that's good to know, because Wadeson's in Warwick only does lawnmower blades. And I want to say a good thing about them. I took my lawnmower blade and the guy said, "This doesn't need to be sharpened." We would sort of polish it and give it back to you and charge it, but it really doesn't need it. You don't need, mow some more and bring it back later. I appreciated that. I give them a shout out for doing that. This is my drying rack.
Nice.
The 2x4s came out of our walls when we moved into this house. We made some renovations. You can see this little sort of shelving thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually, it was in closets here. And again, we had those shelving taken out. So basically, and so the sawhorses are one thing, and they're used for various projects throughout the year. But then this cross piece is a separate thing that doesn't necessarily need to be sitting on this. So, there are some of our Jacob cattle beans drying, but this was about half of our Jacob cattle bean crop. And we could have strung them up one plant at a time, but I figured hanging out this way, they were going to be dry enough. And it seemed to work well.
Can you tell me more about your beans? What do they taste like? Are they good?
Oh, it's a beautiful taste bean.
What's it like? Compare it to a bean.
I can run downstairs and show you some. They're this beautiful purple and white speckled bean.
No, I mean, like, what do they taste like?
It's a little bit on the sweet side. They're not, let's see. Some beans are sort of, they have like, I don't like a lot of pith or something to them. These cook up really soft. They're like the size of a black bean, a little bit bigger, but they cook up really soft. And it's an heirloom bean. I noticed somebody who was in like a slow food or somebody, and they were promoting, they're like every year they promote a handful of heirloom seeds, and Jacob's cattle was their thing. My wife is a native Chinese speaker, and so sometimes her English, sometimes she will say things a little bit funny. And one of the wonderful things about my wife is she's very good natured about when she pronounces something funny. So she was always saying something like Jacobus cattle, or just wasn't coming out right. These happens to be the colors of Texas A&M University, where my niece went to college. And so in our dialect at home, we call them A&M beans. If that makes you for or against them, I don't know. But anyway, if they're sort of their colors, and when we checked with the niece, they approved of this name. So.
Was this the meeting an hour, right, or 90 minutes? Which
yes, we were planning just to go until 8:30. We're a couple minutes over. We didn't have any other people bring pictures of tools or whatnot to share. Are there any other questions or closing comments?
Michael, I put something in the chat about seed saving. In the movie The Need to Grow, the Girl Scout that was trying to get them to take GMOs out of the Girl Scout cookies, she started a seed library, and now she's like an activist and seed saver. And I sent her the Facebook page, but I got the impact kit for that movie, and there was a 10-minute video on setting up a seed saving library, which I haven't watched, but I could check that out, and maybe someone can sign into my account if they're interested in if it's worth watching.
Okay. Please report
So,
back to us on that.
I will do. So.
I had a wonderful time. Thanks for letting me attend, and you guys are amazing, and I think you're incredible.
Thank you. I had a question that didn't pop up tonight. I don't know if you got that or not. Regarding whether or not to trim and things. You didn't get things?
I didn't get any.
I sent pictures. I thought it was sustainable Warwick and Grow Greenwood Lake from my garden.
I didn't get it. Sorry.
And no, it's cool. Maybe there was something lost because I sent several pictures, so that was probably the issue.
Oh.
I've been trimming everything back and trying to extend my season as long as possible, including all my tomatoes. My peppers are flourishing, but like my tomatoes, any signs of like early blight or blight, I'm really chopping off and doing the best there. My question was regarding my trellises and some of my pumpkins and squashes that were growing up them, dealing with a bit of powdery mildew. And I don't know whether so here's the deal. A lot of the flowers, a lot of the leaves have mildew on them, but I'm still experiencing a lot of flowers. So I don't know if it's just time to call my losses and pull it and be done for the season, or if I give it a go.
I gave mine a go. I used baking soda and water twice a day. Don't water from the top, water from below. Like, don't get the leaves wet. Avoid getting the leaves wet. And that's what I did, and it helped with 1
out of the 3. See, I just didn't know if I had that final push in like the pumpkin squash zone right now, or if it's just, do I have time? Like if I'm showing, because I'm showing beautiful yellow, orange flowers, but my leaves are looking sad.
Out of the 3 that had it. My delicata is huge and dead in the middle and still producing fruit. Like still producing fruit.
What's your mist you're doing twice a day? Because I've heard like watered down milk, like before it rains.
I have heard milk. I've heard pouring milk on the leaves. I'm very curious to know what Sarah wants to say about this. Sarah, do you have something? Because you have more experience than me.
Well, do you have fruit? Is there fruit on your vine?
There is fruit. So I had ornamental gourds, which I pulled today, and I'm starting to cure. That was another one of my questions. Like I cut them, and I just have them out in basically like in a tub on a table, trying to avoid any critters or things to cure now, right? So I can display the ornamental pieces. I have some pumpkins. They're smaller versions of Long Island cheese pumpkins. Right? So I cut those. So all of that I cut off because everybody looks so sad. Like you can see the mildew. Like my trellises are gorgeous. I have 4 cattle panels that are lined up. But plants are crossing and twisting and turning. And I mean, I was doing really well at cutting back, but I'm at the point now where the garden is beyond wild and there's no human intervention.
Cutting back is going to be very beneficial to you. Any cutting back that you can do to prevent them from touching and air getting in is going to help you.
I think I'm too intertwined now at this point. Yeah, that was my question. So I had sent pictures of like flowers versus what I'm dealing with. So I know I can do a watered down milk version, right? Spray.
Well, first of all, let's back up a minute.
Sure.
It's mid-September. So I would not harvest winter squash this early. I would wait a bit longer. And the vines look really ratty right now, but I think I've mentioned before, I've always been of the theory that by end of September, the garden's on the downslide around here, and you're a few weeks away from maybe a frost, maybe not. So I'm done with the heroic efforts. the fruit that's there is going to continue to develop.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll develop slowly, even on that ratty vine, but they get more flavor this time of year.
They don't need the leaves to get to photosynthesize and stuff like that? They don't need the...
They're already growing. The fruit's growing.
Oh, okay.
It's doubtful you're going to get any more sizable pumpkin from something that flowers now.
Okay.
You don't have that much time.
So like with my tomato plants, like I said, I went through and I still have some beautiful beefsteaks left, and I've been pulling off any flowers, and I've been pulling off any signs of early disease or later disease, right? And trying to get that final push. Same thing for the squash you're saying, like, do I pull those flowers and just try to give those vines a push? Because like Chad said, that's the reason that I cut a bunch of them today. They look so sad. Like there was no more life left in the old girl, like at all.
You mean the vine?
Yeah.
Cutting the vines, I found that mine reacted badly to cutting the vines, but when I cut off infected powdery mildew leaves, it thrived.
Yeah, leave the vines.
Okay. I mean, because they look like they're turning that yellow as well. And I did that for a large portion with a lot of my cucumbers. Every time I felt like that cucumber and the tendril fell and that immediate leaf next to it fell, I cut that and I extended the season and I got so much more. This came on so much more rapidly where it's like, oh, you look terrible.
Well, is it powdery mildew? Is it powdery mildew or is it cucumber beetles and squash vine borer?
Squash vine borers took out my zucchini. I put in like a Hail Mary zucchini like 3-4 weeks ago. Like, if you can, you can. But if you can't, I tried.
Well, actually, my zucchini plants, they didn't do well this year. And I got some zucchini bugs. And I went over and I cleaned that up one day. And I saw some borer. And I dug the borers out and covered it up. And those damn zucchini plants are still pugging along, and they look terrible. The cucumbers, I pulled them all out. The seeds, I had leftover seeds that someone had given me because, the seed shopping was shut down. And they got some type of, I don't know if it's disease, a fly, what it is. I have a little shriveled cucumber in a plastic bag around here that I looked online, and I found a picture of it. And then when I went to the website, they were talking about cucumber flies, but then they showed me the picture and then they said, that isn't what this is. So, but those, I just ripped them out.
When you say you saw the borers in the zucchini and you covered them, did you do that with foil? Did you cut?
I knew they had borers because they always get borers. That sawdust at the bottom. So I went in with the penknife and dug around and did a little surgery, and then I threw some dirt over them. And we got rain. Remember, it got very dry. That messed up a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And then we got a nice spell of rain, and everything popped up again. Mm-hmm. But your tomatoes, it's supposed to go down in the 40s this week. That's going to take a
toll. The ones that are out there right now, they really are. I mean, like, I only have a couple, but that are really nice. Like, I went to the farmer's market 2 weeks ago, and I saw somebody selling, I think it was Rogowski Farm. She had like a red brandy wine on top of some peppers. And I was like, how much is that tomato? Like, I haven't bought tomatoes in years, but I'm all down to like my cherries, right? I've been munching on cherries the whole time I'm here. So they waited, and it was like $4.86, and I was like, I can't spend that on a tomato. Like, you're crazy. $5 for a pack of really rare seeds, and that's like a lot of tomatoes. But that's why I'm saying, like, I have a couple of really big ones left, but I'm trying my best.
They'll continue to ripen, but have you grown tomatoes other years? Because as the temperatures start to decrease and the nighttime temperatures start to dip, it's slower, and they start to lose flavor. They need that hot weather for the flavor. But
yeah, it's like mine hit a wall. Like I was taking 12 tomatoes through the course of the week, like picking handfuls of tomatoes every day, and then the weather took a dip. And now the green ones are just staying green, and the ones that the chipmunks can reach, they're eating. So they're eating 1 green tomato a day. But
Nicole, one thought crossed my mind when you said your ornamental gourds were sitting outside the rain.
I think Nicole just dropped out.
Oh,
We are running a little bit past time. I want to do this. I want to thank everyone. I'm going to stop recording. If people want to stay on and keep chatting, that's fine. I need to take care of some other things, but everyone.
Yes, I got to go. Thank you, everyone.
Everyone can stay on and keep chatting, but I'm going to stop recording and thank everyone for participating today.
take care.
So 2 weeks again, Michael?